Welcome to my fifth video of our FPS in Unity. In this video, we're going to use Unity's built-in animator to animate a minecart. And you could use this for a variety of different things. The minecart is just a really simple example, but you could actually do this for doors. So instead of how we did the door, you could actually set it up using the animator. And you actually have a lot more freedom and power using the animator than you do kind of hard scripting like the door animations. So it is a very powerful tool, one worth learning, and you'll definitely need to learn it for using character animations. The only difference is with character animations, those are usually provided to you by the 3D modeler. They would be built inside of Blender or whatever tool. Here, we're going to use the Unity level editor to construct the animation. And so that's what we're going to do. So select the object that you want to animate. And again, this could be as simple as just a plain cube, because I'm not going to do anything super fancy with the minecart. I'm going to try to make it look like it's traveling along this track. I'm going to do my best to make the turn look realistic. And that's what we're going to animate, and then be able to have it go back and forth between those two spots. So once you have the thing that you want to animate, have it selected, and then we're going to pull up the animation window. So there are two of them that we are going to use in this: the animation and animator. The animator is the one that connects all of the individual animations. So I'm going to choose animation, and that pops up this window. This is the tool that you use to construct animations with. Very kind of commonly used in 2D games. This is where you'll like set all of your sprites together. In what we're about to do, this is where we're going to set all the world conditions. And actually all the other components can be animated in the sense that you could like change a light, for instance. The light's color could change over the animation. So there's a lot you can do with this. We're really just going to play with the transform, meaning the position. But like I said, you can, sky's almost the limit here. So to set this up, we are going to need to have the things selected in the hierarchy. And then we're going to click this create button here. And this is going to create both an animator and an animation clip. The animator is the thing that controls all and synchronizes all of the animation clips. So we're going to click create, and it's going to open up a space here inside of, well, my scripts, which is definitely not where I want to put this. So I'm going to actually want to create a new folder called animations. And then inside of there, I'm going to create another one called minecart, just because in case I had a few other things, like if I had a door, I don't want all these animations to end up just spilled in one folder. And instead of calling it new animation, I'm going to call this minecart push, and then hit save. And you can see that it's given me this tool here. It's given me essentially what's known as the dope sheet. The curves is a chance for us to look at the transition between keyframes. So we have our, you'll notice that also it gave us a, well, it should have, yeah, it gave us an animator over here. So this is, so it's linked up to the controller. You could use the same controller if you had multiple minecarts doing essentially the same animations. And then over in animations, we've got two files. We've got the anim, which is the actual animation, and then the controller, which is the thing that we're eventually going to play with that's going to connect all of these. So for this, we're going to want to start setting up some keyframes for our minecart. And hopefully I get this right. So we are going to click enable keyframe recording, And I wanted to get just like where I'm at right now. I believe. So I just move it a tiny bit. And then that adds in that position. So it adds in my position. Actually, kind of thinking back on this, if I push delete on that, if I just go to add property, and then I tell it to add the position, and then I want to add the rotation, because both of those need to be keyframed for the animation, because this is going to be, you know, at time mark 0, be here, be at this position. Then we can hit the play button, and we can move it to where we want to. So the next keyframing I want is going to be at the end of the straightaway, right before we begin to turn. And then I can turn this off, and I'm kind of free to move this around if I want. So I could hit play to watch it. And I think I've accidentally reversed this. So that's okay. If I've accidentally reversed it, I can just take and drag it, and it will swap the keyframes around. And this, you can position how long you want it to take. So this would take, I want to say this is not 20 seconds, but like not even a second. So this is fractional of a second. So if we move it up to 1, that would be 1 second. This is individual, I guess, frames, so it's like 60 frames of division within 1 second. Whoops. So if we select my minecart, select my animation, and then we can hit play to watch it. And so if that's how fast I want this to take, then I could leave it at that. Then I could position my thing, or my time indexer, hit record, and then move it up to where I want to have a new setting. And so this is where it gets a little bit more artistic. And in that, I want to try to make it so that it makes sense as how it got to where it is on the mine carts. So the more keyframes you do, potentially the better this will look. You'll just have to make sure you get the timing right. Then I can hit the play button. And now I've got, so you can see that maybe I need to add a few more keyframes. Like if that looks a little wonky, then I can just go here, hit the play button, position it a little bit better, hit the play button, and then I can see if that makes it any better. And I can edit the keyframes if I feel like it's not lined up very well, but I think that's as good as it's going to be. Then if I want to add one more for kind of the ending spot, putting the minecart here, setting the rotation, and it will do its best to interpolate between these desired keyframes. So if that looks a little slow, I might have to adjust the positioning. So this might need to be a little bit tighter, I think. So, like, not always the easiest task. So selecting all of this, positioning it in where we want. So if we want to play with some of this more in depth, if we start looking at the curves, we can actually see more about what's happening. There we go. And I think we could change these around. Again, I'm not the best at understanding where these need to be to look the best. So I think Z is probably the one that needs to be a little bit more that's just the same keyframe as that. So that's what actually the problem is. I think I want to delete that keyframe. Oof. Some of this is very tricky to play with. So if you fiddle with it enough, eventually you will get a decent looking animation. So playing with the times, making sure you don't have any duplicate keyframes that make it look like it pauses. And so if I'm happy with that, and I could probably spend all kinds of time fiddling with it. Kind of the key thing that I was making sure about was that the rotation at this point was the same rotation here, but then it's allowed to start changing to a different rotation over these new frames. So I was kind of careful to make sure that it had a keyframe reference for both rotation here, because if we didn't have this rotation piece, it would have started rotating earlier. So when we're happy with it, we can then start triggering this animation. While I'm here, I do know that I'm going to want to create a reverse animation because I want this to be able to be played in reverse. So we could take the existing animation and inside of the project settings and then hit Control D to duplicate it. And then we're going to call this Minecraft Push Reverse. And so with it selected and going back to the animator, we can go through and essentially reverse the values for everything. So I'm going to do my best to try to get them in essentially the same amount of time in between each, but I wasn't really doing the math on that. So that this, when played in reverse, oh, I need to attach the clip to it. It's the difficult part of dealing with this, of getting it to acknowledge that that's one of the animations. I think we're going to end up having to just add it to this animator. So let's open the animator and begin playing with that. So if we double click the animator, it's going to open up the animator editor where we can essentially attach all the different animations and all the triggers that cause the animations to go between their different states. Right now we have the minecart push animation, and it does that right out of entry. So if we were to put the player in a position where the player could see this, so if I move my player in and then I hit play, we see this cart repeatedly moving because what's happening in the animation controller, entry is when the game is starting, and it's going to just jump to this minecart push state, and this animation, if we look at the settings on it, is set to loop. So it's going to loop over and over and over. So I'm going to uncheck loop time, and then I'm also going to uncheck loop time on this. So it's going to enter, and then it's going to immediately trigger and play the animation we just made. Which is not what we really want. So see, at least it's stopped now, but we don't want that to trigger unless the player activates the minecart to push it. So that's where scripting is going to have to come in, and that's also where we're going to need to put some triggers for this. So what I usually do in this case is I'm going to create an empty state, and I'm just going to call this start. And it's not attached to any specific animations. So the entry, we're going to set the state machine default state to start. So that's not going to be triggering this animation right out of the get-go. So when the game loads, it kicks into the start state. And you can see that when we play test, it no longer moves. Then I'm going to create a trigger for it, which is actually under parameters. So I'm going to click the plus sign, and I want to create a trigger. And the trigger is going to be just an event that I can trigger via script, and I'm just going to call it move, so that all I have to do is send the message from a script to the animator called move, and it's going to tell it to do something. So if I'm in the start state, if we right-click this and go to make transition, we can tell it to transition to the push state. And if we select this transition by single left-clicking on it, we can add the condition of the move trigger. So if the move trigger gets pulled, it's going to then send us into the push animation, and then that's where we're going to be. Now let's drag and drop on the reverse one so that we have minecart push reverse. Now that it's in the animator, I believe we can actually preview it. So like if I pull up, yeah, now that it's in the animator, it's a valid one to be able to preview. So now that it's in here, it can consider it associated with this minecart. So then from the push state, I can make a transition into the reverse animation if the move trigger has been chosen. And then I can go back, right click to the push state if the move trigger has been chosen. So we're basically going to bounce between these two animations every time the player presses activate. We're going to then start building the script now so that we can see this happen because we need to be able to send this move command to the minecart to play these animations. So let's go and do that. So this is going to be under the objects folder, and we want a new script. And this is going to be activate minecart. And I'm going to double click it, and we will open it in Visual Studio. So it's going to have a lot of the same traits as either the fire or the door. That's kind of up to us if we want to just grab some of this. So I'm going to take some of the code from activate fire. It's going to copy it. This is kind of my template for activatable things. And then I'm going to paste it in here. I'm going to delete the enumerator. Because I'm not going to use coroutines. And I'm going to take out the fire particles play. I'm going to take out the start coroutine. And then the rest of this can stay the same. But I do need to start changing these variables. So when I activate it, it's going to say push minecart. And I can have it say reset minecart. It is not already activated, and it is ready for us to activate. Now, we will need to have it set up. We need to have it be able to communicate with the animator. So we need an instance variable for our animator, which does mean we are going to need our start method. I actually don't remember if that's a private or a public method. Start is just void, I think. So we need to say animator equals get component animator so that we can link to that animator. That links to this animator web so that we can communicate to this. So what we want to do, and just to prove a point, I'm going to take out this part of activate because we're just going to send a single message and then the state of the animator will know what to do. And that message that we're going to send is that move trigger. So we just say animator dot set trigger, and then it is a string, so quotes move. And I still am going to use my is ready so that I can't, because it will be finicky if we just keep on mashing use on here. So I'm going to have is ready to be false. And then hit save. And I really don't need to worry necessarily about the is activated state because every time I push the minecarts, it doesn't matter. The animation is known from, the correct animation to play is known from the current state that it's in. But if we really want to have the get name make sense, we could just say is activated equals not is activated, and that will flip whatever it's equal to. So we'll hit save on this. Now it's never going to reset, so it's only going to trigger once. And we are going to attach this to the minecart. We don't need to change any of this other stuff. There's nothing we actually have to rig up inside of the Unity editor. So make sure we get the correct minecart and then attach the activate minecart script to it. Hit play. And when we walk up to it and press E to use, we will discover it does nothing. And I think that's because I didn't set this. Oh, no, I did. So it should take us to the push animation. Oh, what went wrong? Well, let's see. Do a little bit of debugging on this. So it should trigger this. So let's make sure that it's actually doing this. So it's actually not getting into that state for whatever reason. And so I'm wondering if it could be the collider, but don't think it's the collider. Oh, we forgot I forgot to inherit from iActivate. So because then whenever I was using my use command, it wasn't going to attempt to send the activate to it. There it goes. Doesn't reset. And there it goes. If I use it again, it never resets, so it's technically not ready. So it's not allowed to be reset. And we do need to control that because otherwise, if we don't block out is ready and the user just sits there spamming E, we could get weird behavior. Well, I think, yeah, see, like that. That's causing a little bit of kind of weirdness to it. So we want to make it so that we can't send multiple is ready signals. So the way that we're going to do that is create a new method on here. And the animation can actually run methods on scripts. So we're going to call this method reset ready. And all it's going to do is make is ready true again. And then we're going to hit save, and then we're going to actually tell the animation to trigger this event when it's done, so that the player can't sit there mashing E and send it 1,000 move signals so that it ends up getting really confused. So we go over to the animation, and we actually want to look at our animation. So I pull up the minecart push, and we can add a event. So the event allows us to send messages to scripts, essentially. It allows us to trigger things. So I can click there, and then I can click add event. So this happens at the end. When I click on it, I choose which script, which is kind of ugly. So I want to send it to the activate minecart. Well, actually, I want to send it to myself. Oh. And I want to send reset ready. So it will then send that message to whatever scripts could hear that on this object. And then we'll want to do that for the reverse as well. So we'll put the time indexer there and then hit add event. And now activate minecart. Methods reset ready. And then now we wouldn't be, so it's not gonna, it'll reset ready when it's done. So if I sit there hitting E like I did last time, it doesn't get into that weird behavior. I'm only allowed to move it once it's completed its animation. And you know, it's collider comes with it. We fall off it because we're not really physics moving with it. We don't have anything holding us onto it. So we would have to get a little bit more clever if we wanted to make a moving platform out of this. But you could still use it as a platform to temporarily go into place to jump onto. But we don't really surf on it necessarily. And so that, I believe, should wrap up setting up animations. Calling them inside the animator. You can do some things, you can adjust the speed, and most of these variables are accessible through code, so you can get kind of fancy with this. We will explore the settings of the animator a lot more when we get into character animations. We'll start talking a little bit more about like what has exit time means, as well as all these other settings. But for now, this will just let us animate things. And there is a lot you can do with this, far more than what I've even touched on in this video. I will definitely admit it is not one of my strong points, just because animation and 3D is just not my forte. I've spent a little bit more time programming than I have with 3D animating. So I can definitely guarantee if you went out there and looked, there's a lot you can do with it. So with that, where we're at for the next video, we're going to look at setting up level transitions. So we're going to start creating an indoor map. So now we have an outdoor island. Now we're going to create an indoor dungeon and then transition the player between the two maps, and then also remember data between the two maps so that if you have ammo or health or keys or anything, we can remember the state of the game in between the two maps. And that will be our final video for this chapter, because that will bring to a close our goal of constructing a world. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.